finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show this week. Tim and May Hindmarsh, your co-hosts in crime here on BS Free MD. And today, our guest is joining us from across the pond, so to speak, and down under. It's Dr. Stephan Neff, actually, who is an anesthetist, and as we say, anesthesiologist.
Yes, we also say New Zealand and not just down under, because I do not want to irritate a Kiwi by suggesting that they're actually Australian.
But Dr. Neff shares that he's had more than his fair share of trauma in his life. He's tried to drown PTSD, depression, and anxiety in industrial doses of vodka. I can relate, but I had to learn the hard way that those critters can swim. I love that. Nowadays, he lives a very different life where self-love, humility, integrity, and transparency actually mean something. His aim is to demystify addiction and mental health problems. And he hosts the show My Steps to Sobriety and is currently releasing the third edition of his book under the same name. He also has a podcast and is on various channels where we will share later where to find him. So welcome to the show, Dr. Neff, or Stephan, as
call it Stephan. And it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, we're happy, and I'm super excited that you reached out to us. And like I said, when you wrote industrial doses of vodka, I'm like, you had me at vodka.
Exactly.
Caught my attention. I don't partake in industrial doses, mind you, but yeah. So why don't you start sharing a little bit, beyond your bio, how you got into, first of all, the depression, anxiety, PTSD, how did this all unravel, which I'm assuming was the beginning of the downhill spiral into the vodka bin. Well, why don't you unwrap that story and what happened?
Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, literally, actually, in Germany, where I was born. I was born on the wrong side of the tracks, but a single mum who tried to make the best out of it. So I didn't have the best upbringing, but not really major trauma. It is more the sort of the complex PTSD that sort of sneaks in over time that we only recognize nowadays, but nothing major to write about initially. I mean, the major thing then when I was 13, sort of first girlfriend, and I was visiting her a bit on the other side of town and was sitting on the tram station when I became victim of a gang assault. And I was pretty smashed up, and I was bleeding and front teeth out and those kind of things. Very brutal for a 13-year-old. That completely changed me, and that completely altered the way I was thinking. I was looking at the world. My core beliefs changed. If they were not already screwed up beforehand, they were now screwed up. I remember sitting in the tram and riding to the hospital in the tram, and people around me just looking away whilst I was bleeding profusely. The tram guy in the front, he didn't give a damn. So it became very clear to me, okay, you are it. From now on, you are it. And the world is, no one will help you. No one is there. And that was certainly one of the core beliefs. And, within a month, my bruises hadn't healed yet. I was starting martial arts, and I started training with the German law enforcement. And it was from then on I became Rambo. So there was this very distinct change. Childhood over, Rambo is coming. Because I brought the gang leader behind bars. He threatened he would kill me on release. And I knew I had 3 years until the guy came out again to change. And I did. I became Rambo. And that was quite a dark time, but it was also, with hindsight, a time where I learned situational awareness, where I learned actually to look after myself. And nowadays, I would call it PTSD. No two ways around it. But then I actually reframed it into something positive. No one can catch me out again. Haha. And that actually worked really, really well, because I later became a doctor and became really good, especially in emergencies. And I mean, you throw me in any deep end and I will come out having the sharks trained behind me. It's beautiful. So I became really good in chaos. But needless to say, the damage was done. Now, fast forward 5 years of darkness, and I came into university. And three things happened at the same time. I realized this idiot will never ever find me. Secondly, there are girls. Thirdly, there is alcohol. And I think that was another crucial moment in my life. It was on a Saturday. I was sitting with two study colleagues in a German beer garden. It was summer and we were under this huge oak, romantic. It was just as you imagine a German happy time. And it was exactly that.
Were lederhosen involved?
Oh, that's later. And I tried not to get these pictures onto the net. We are lucky. We then could still control what goes onto the net.
Okay. I just think German happy time, and I go straight to lederhosen and boy. 2 liter beer stein.
No, Heidelberg and Berlin. We wore different things. Let me put it like that. But that goes beyond this show. So there we were, and I will never remember that. Forget that, because we were so. It was just initially just a bit of laughter, and suddenly there was this wave of dopamine washing over me. And the world was brighter. There was laughter came out of my mouth with such a depth and intensity that I had never realized that life could be so beautiful. And all the darkness fell away from me. And it was so beautiful. This dopamine rush. And that was basically the first time that alcohol really showed me, wow, this can be good. And that memory forever linked. Boom. You see it now. I can still describe it in minute details. And it was there where the wrong memories got laid down when it comes down to alcohol. And we keep forgetting whatever alcohol later on becomes for you, the wrecking ball that destroys your accounts, your relationship, your profession often enough. Initially, it is the most beautiful thing that you could imagine, the friend that you thought you would never find, because it takes often away the pain. It takes away the shyness. It takes away all those negative emotions. It allows you to escape reality. And that is so powerful. We keep forgetting that. Because underlying the addiction and underlying all the negative behaviors that you see later on is typically trauma, is typically all the negative things that are living in the past. And that, history doesn't stay in the past. Unfortunately, it comes along. And here we are. So I was a man who was never taught how to deal with his own negative emotions. And the only thing I knew, I suddenly realized I can actually escape that reality with the help of a beer. And that was beautiful. And from that time on, really, I used alcohol. And initially, it was a really close friend. I was young, bloody hell, my liver was in prime condition. It could take anything. And alcohol gave me huge advantages. I was shy. That went down the gurgler. Give me 2 free drinks and give me a guitar. And hell, I can't sing. I can't play guitar very well. But it was like moths to a flame as far as girls were concerned. And it was beautiful. And it had so many advantages for me, alcohol. It improved my sexuality, my standing power, so to speak. And I could ask a girl, how long would you like to make love? And she would laugh. And I said, man, an hour? She said, okay, challenge taken. Boom, there we go. Hour later, stop it, enough. And it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. That was what alcohol did to me. It was, I could live with it. It was a double-edged sword, but I was a master in juggling that sword. Yeah. The
So
problem, of course, is
I was going to say, is this all during your
studies.
university years?
University, early
yes.
20s, we're talking.
You hit on a little, I wouldn't say a nerve, but a chord for me, because this is, at least in my personal experience, is very common where I went to school. Even people who, they probably had a lot more baggage maybe than I realized, but I was just thinking across the board back in the day in the 80s, going to university, it was just a common thing for people in general to escape to the bars, to the pubs, on the weekends, and consume way too much alcohol on a regular basis because it was an escape. And there's so much stress at that time of your life. You're discovering yourself as a person. You're in school. It's stressful. There's all these, it's an escape. And you're right. All the feelings you're describing is a common thing. And I'm surprised that more people don't become alcoholics in university years because of that. Now, at least in our time.
How many more do you want? It's 1 in 3 are chemically addicted.
Right.
So that's a hell of a lot of people. And even today in a kind of woke culture where we talk about our feelings, bullshit. In reality, you talk about it, but who actually learns the mindfulness? Who actually learns all the techniques to actually deal with the trauma? No, that's unfortunately, there's a lifelong learning necessary to come to a point where the 3 of us are. So it is weird. Yeah, too many of us do escape. 1 in 3 is the figure that I quote. Some people say, no, that's too much. And I say, okay, 1 in 4, if I'm a bit more conservative. And that's chemical addiction. That includes absolutely everything. Alcohol, the figures are lower, but still tremendous. 1 in 5, 1 in 6, if you think alcohol. And that depends on where you are. But virtually all societies around the world have got a very strong temptation towards alcohol or towards other means of escaping reality.
Well, I think we need a means of escape, because this brings up a lot of, I don't want to go down the philosophical rabbit hole too deep, but when you think of, what's reality, right? The Buddhists would say it's just in your head and there isn't really an objective reality. I think we've seen, when you say there is no objective reality, what's gone on with sort of woke culture. And in our country, where they've said that math is racist, that tends to be a problem, especially if you want to fly on an aircraft that, obeys the laws of math, because that's how they built it. So,
who wouldn't want
so there is this concept of, life is hard. That's really important for people to understand, and it's not fair. I think that's reality. So if we're escaping the fact that life really isn't fair and it is very difficult and challenging, then we do need means to be able to step out of that from time to time. I don't think that that's wrong. The issue is, how do you do that in a way that equips you to be stronger to continue to deal with those challenges? I think that's really the answer.
Exactly. Absolutely right. The problem is, as a young man and as a young woman, or non-gender, it doesn't matter which chromosomal or behavioral makeup you wear. The reality is that we are a bit like chimpanzees in front of a keyboard. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, that feels good. What's that? Oh, alcohol. Oh, I need to remind myself alcohol is good, or smoking, or sugar, or all of those. And that's unfortunately the social engineering that has occurred over the last 50 years has been so misguiding us. And it's really, really hard. And it continues and continues with social media and influencers and all that crap. You have essentially a life where you demand instant satisfaction. You don't want to work on a relationship. You want to swipe right and have good sex. It's that kind of a thing. And with that comes, unfortunately, the need for the expectation that something is immediately super saccharine sweet Coca-Cola advertisement. That's how I want to live. I want to be rich. I want to be good looking. And I'm sure nowadays, if you look at girls, some girls only have one side of a face. Honestly, I swear they have nothing on the other side because it looks like so. And so therefore, we're still, nothing has changed. We are still trying to put these masks up. And now it's even easier with the filters on your phone and everything. My goodness. And just for those of you listening out there, do you really want to have a poodle face? Do you really want to put dog's eyes?
I know.
Really? That you?
The question I ask, like, who uses this stuff? And then when I see who does it, I feel embarrassed for them. I'm like, what the heck?
But let's come back to the addiction. So ultimately,
Yes.
we want to be different people. And I've only realized much later that I can be a different person. And I don't have to use alcohol. But it took a hell of a long time, because initially the alcohol was my best friend, but then trauma added on. God, I mean, there was far too much trauma, and not to go into much detail, but ultimately every year there was another nasty thing happening. And guess what? I had still not learned myself to deal with those things. I became very, very good in hiding, in running away, because escaping obviously seemed to work. Alcohol was one thing, but before the show, I already said I was probably a workaholic long before I became an alcoholic, because I could throw myself into work, and it was beautiful.
So did you get the same dopamine rush from work then? So that would be your...
I could. Absolutely. Well, especially later on when it came to trauma was the adrenaline, and was that kind of the being the hero, the knight in shining armor, the external validation that I got from so many things. So there was a lot of that going on. But even in university, I remember one night I was learning anatomy way beyond midnight, and I was sitting there, cup of tea, anatomy book, and just one cone of lights on old-fashioned bulb in some metal thing, and it shone that cone of light, which there was nothing around me. It was quiet in the student home, and just anatomy in front of me, and I felt that dopamine rush coming, that beautiful focus, that I can focus on one thing and nothing else matters. And that was, again, this was beautiful. I loved it. And
Wow.
that again, so, but what was it? I was still running away. I was running away from my past. I was running away from my trauma. But I found in homework, I found in things that really interested me, I found escapes. And that was beautiful.
Let's talk about that moment, that light bulb, literally moment, where you felt that sensation, because I want to try to unravel that a little bit to see what you think, because some people will go, well, I never experienced that, I can't relate. Other people will know exactly and have that same type of thing. So do you think, especially with the dopamine, and I know that high sensation seeking type people, the holics, as you know, we like to call it, the workaholic, alcoholic, those people have some different hardwiring where that happens? Or do we all have the potential for that, yet some people are just living on a different lower level and haven't discovered their Zen sort of
You
Like,
say it,
yeah.
Zen. I mean, we all strive for that serenity. We all strive for that calmness. People go into yoga, into sometimes psychoactive substances to achieve that peace and quiet. I found it there, sitting in front. Well, I was sitting in it in that moment when I could focus on things. So people who are very religious and to go into deep prayer or deep meditation or those kind of things. So they find that focus, that calmness within themselves. I so happened to stumble across it the first time as I was studying. So it is, I think it's the ultimate calmness where our body and mind are living really right now in this moment in time when nothing else matters. The past has already happened. The future hasn't even started yet. So right now is this moment. And my goodness, if I'm now thinking about it, if I could have just learned about that there and then, and would have not continued to rely on alcohol or sex or work or whatever else I took to numb myself and escape my reality. Wow. Maybe this was a bit my saving grace when I think about it, because this to escape in work that became a hallmark of my being, and that made me, of course, a damn good doctor. It was hard for anyone to catch me out, and yeah, it was good. But of course, again, it was all about external validation, about being good, being good in the eyes of others. This was a very, with hindsight, there were many things that were a bit shallow, and that
Well,
was.
and that's the key. I was going to say, because we want to channel that, and when you reach that focus, that Zen, obviously you want it to be something positive and for positive reasons. And if it can be your work where you're contributing or you're whatever, you're volunteering in your community, and that is a positive thing. But if it's for the wrong reasons that motivates and drives you, it's going to unravel and turn into a mess.
Yeah, but it's
so how do you achieve that balance?
Right. But there's a part of me where it goes back to, our faith tradition is Christianity. We are devout, and I can't help but bring back the ancient texts. So, that's who we are. And I think of the whole I'm not sure which one of the Pauline letters it is, where he says, Christ is preached for good motives and bad motives. I mean, there's people that jumped onto the Christian, dialogue because it made them famous, because these early Christians were becoming famous. And Paul says, I don't care, because I just want the gospel to get out there. And even if it's, preached by a charlatan, as long as it's actually the gospel, I don't care. And there's a part of this, we want to pierce the darkness because we don't want to feel terrible. But then there's these really amazing things that have come out of some unbelievable traumas. I can't remember the book I was reading, but they were talking about how there's a disproportionate number of unbelievably highly functioning, super ambitious men that had lost their mother by about the age of 10. And so that is one of the most traumatic events that can happen to a child. And for whatever reason, like Bill Clinton lost his mother at like 8 or 9 years old. And there was this other example that he had given in the book of this guy that, his mother died of cancer, and he became like the greatest cancer researcher or whatever in the world. And so you sit there and you go, you can't, I mean, as much as people say you can escape the past is dead. No, it's not. I mean, it's very alive, but how it's alive and how we choose to sort of nurture that is really where the function or the dysfunction is.
Right. I was talking about the motivations behind your behavior.
Right. But I don't know that the motivations matter that much. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a moral argument, which I think is important. Obviously, we think morality is sort of the only thing that really matters. But I think there's also this,
I think the motivations matter.
Let's put it like that. There are 3 ways that trauma can impact us, or three states in which we are after major and minor trauma. And let's first of all, let's talk about trauma very briefly. Trauma is something that is happening to you. This could be that your best friend is blown up on a battlefield and you are wearing his guts for garters. Could be. It could be that someone is looking at you very disapprovingly, and somehow that is laid down so deep inside that it forever eats away at you, and anything in between. Okay, so trauma is unique for everyone, but unfortunately, a lot of it is happening. You mentioned it earlier, the world is not a nice place. Period. Full stop. That's it. The world is a bitch. End of the story. So trauma happens. What then happens within you? That's to a certain degree up to you and up to your stage in life. Initially, you're a victim. And I was a victim for quite a long time, actually, with various things. And the problem is, the more trauma happens, you go back to the victim, and again victim, and again victim. When it came to, for example, the gang assault, I was a victim for 4 weeks, and then I became a survivor. But I never moved on from there. I became the survivor. I became the Rambo. And the survivor, that lasted probably the better part of 1/4 century for me. I never became the thriver, the post-traumatic growth, until I stopped drinking and until I stopped actually trying to escape the reality and dealing with it. So there's victim, survivor, thriver. Nowadays, I try to be as much as possible in the last group. Unfortunately, from now and then, like, last weekend, well, this weekend, just gone, I had a pity party. Ooh, that was nice. Wallowing in my depression and, oh, me, poor me, poor me, poor me. Another one. Well, I would have loved to, but I didn't. But here you go. That was, from now and then you come back to those kind of, I'm so sad. And that's okay. I'm making a bit fun of it, but I was actually lying in a fetal position. But most of the time, I'm nowadays in the thriver seat, and that is beautiful. So therefore, it is our choices that allow us to do that. But it's like going to the gym. If you're going the first time in there, oh my God, you have no idea. And there are all these spandex hunks and women who look like bloody models there, and you wobble in there in your fat suit, and you have no idea how to do any of the weights. Fast forward 6 months, and you had some training, and you suddenly throw these weights around as if it's nothing. It's the same with building up resilience and techniques how to cope with life. You just, the first time the trauma happens to you, you have no bloody clue. But then hopefully, either you're living with people or you bring people into your life that can become role models and show you different ways how to deal with it. Unfortunately, in my life, it was basically drink alcohol. That was what you did in the 80s. When I look back at my role models, Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, Bruce Willis, Die Hard, these were, how do you deal with negative emotions? There's actually a scene in one of the Schwarzenegger films, vodka.
Yeah,
literally.
Yes.
So there you go. And it is that, unfortunately, I had the wrong teaching, the wrong guidance. And it's only later on that I have learned that. And nowadays, I'm proud of getting it right most of the time. That I see that there's the temptation of the cheesecake or temptation of whatever it is. And that I actually, more often than not, choose something that actually helps me to grow and helps me to deal with things better, in a better way than I did in the past.
Right, but
the cheesecake. Yes, I read that you are a master cheesecake maker. Well, at least you like to make it. So do I. I'm like, there must be a thing, vodka and cheesecake. Do they go together? Or like, connected.
So it's the new peanut butter and
You're my
jelly.
new best friend across the pond. This is awesome.
But there's
No.
something
But oh wait, I have a thought that goes back a little bit. If I could go there, before I forget, the thing that you talked about going from victim to survivor to thriver. I want us to kind of talk about that a little bit before we get into, how to
Cheesecakes.
Yes, because for a lot of people, it's a stepwise process. Maybe 2 steps ahead, 1 step back, 2 steps ahead. But for a lot of people, it's a overlapping circle that's fluid because they are always in there. They can't, once they escape their victim, what's happening as the victim, or even they're still in the survivor mode. Say someone who has a horrible ongoing illness, a crippling disease that for some people will let it define them in their life. And you can't ever just get rid of that unless you're miraculously healed somehow. So there's that, or a situation that they're in where you're trying to thrive and make the best of that, but you're still entangled in it. So how to, I guess how, or I want people to recognize that there's sometimes moments when you can still try to thrive and not let your circumstances define you. Because sometimes you can't ever get out of what's happening to you as I won't say victim, but as a person. So there can be one event where it's an event that happens and it's a horrific divorce, say, and you're able to move on. But for some people, especially, the medical things are easy to, I think our listeners to understand, where it's a chronic, lifelong thing you're going to be dealing with. You're always fluid in trying to become a survivor and thriver with that condition or that trauma, that experience. But it's easy to slip back into old habits or
Absolutely.
poor coping skills, or emotionally struggle.
Let's take an example, a very common example nowadays in the Western society. It's obesity, central obesity, being overweight, overstressed, far too overweight, and you develop type 2 diabetes. And initially, there's the denial, and then 5 years later, you finally get the diagnosis, and then you're on tablets. And why me? Why me? Well, because you have eaten bloody shit most of your time, most of your life. That's as simple as that. But no one wants to hear that. That would take ownership. No, we can't have that. So you can be the victim and, oh, doctor, make me better. Give me the magic pill.
Right.
Yeah, about that. So there are the people who live in that kind of thing. Oh, I don't know why it happens. I'm just the pills don't work. I'm on free pills, and I'm still, my feet are rotting. And you think, oh, for fuck's sake. Or you could actually say, hang on, let's actually have a look at the root cause of all that: your nutrition, your lifestyle, your stress, your hydration, your eating shit, your all that. So let's actually do a Mediterranean diet. Let's start an exercise regime. Let's actually put some intermittent fasting, or in fact, actually some proper fasting in. By the way, let's give you the micronutrients that you need. And surprise, surprise, 3 months later, your diabetes is gone. Your HbA1c is down from 65 to, well, less than 40, which means by definition you're off tablets. Yeah, bing, hang on, moment. So this is a chronic disease that potentially kills so many people in our lifetime. Yet there are actually ways that we can dramatically improve it or actually get rid of it. So here you go. So go from victim to survivor. Okay, I have to take these tablets. To thriver, say, I want to know everything about that disease that is there to know. I want to know more about it than my doctor, and I want to work with it. So see what the different stages are, and see what the big delineating factor is.
I love it.
Action,
it's empowering people.
To
Yes.
go out there.
But it really it's fascinating, because I just read an article, a Substack by and I would absolutely give this guy a shout out, the Bad Cat, El Gato Malo. He's from Puerto Rico, just a brilliant mind, and he talks about how he took a quote from some psychologist that said, a lot of us in the profession are really tired of having just bad things that happen to people become diagnoses. or just normal things that happen.
Nice.
Normal things like
nice.
everyone gets depressed once in a while. Everyone
Yep.
gets anxious once in a while. It's
Perfect.
really awkward to be a teenager, either a male or female. That doesn't mean that you're in the wrong body, and it doesn't mean that you need pills.
Beautiful.
So when but the fact is that we haven't just celebrated victimhood, at least in Western societies. We've industrialized it.
Oh, excellent.
Because
Love it.
victims make a ton of money. If I am powerless to deal with my diabetic problem, or my my emotional problem, or my crappy marriage, or whatever problem I might have, there's a pill for it. There's an app for it. There's a whatever.
There's a coach for it.
There's a
That's the new
exactly.
thing. Everyone's a coach now.
And it comes from my perspective. It comes from an unbelievably satanic foundation, which is the world is fair and it's supposed to work, and it's supposed to work for everyone. And if any part of it isn't working for you, you don't have the right pills, the right coach, the right self-help book, or the right guru. Like, take your pick. And I'm like, no, Van Halen, David Lee Roth and Van Halen in like 1985. He said, he's probably drunk at the time, but it was a brilliant.
Just a gigolo?
No, it was a brilliant statement. They said, what's your view on the world? Because, trying to get political or whatever. And he goes, my view on the world is a spinning cesspool of despair, and Van Halen is sailing a yacht through it. And I was like, that is far closer to reality than everyone's supposed to look like an Instagram model, and everyone is supposed to, drive a Lamborghini. And no, the world is actually really harsh. And telling
unless,
people,
of course, you have got the physique and the ability to play guitar like Van Halen, then I guess it's a yacht.
Yeah,
So
but then look at the lives of those guys.
Yeah, I know.
Like how many of the rock stars had to go to rehab 5 times?
Shit, yeah.
How many of them stayed married for 40 years? There's like one guy, Alice Cooper. He's been married for I think 50 years now.
Oh wow.
And he was drunk on his ass for most of his career. And then Bernie Taupin introduced him to cocaine, which was the worst combination in the world. And eventually he just woke up one day and he said, I'm going to die.
Bernie Taupin is in Elton John's.
Bernie Taupin and Alice Cooper wrote music together. There is a little tidbit for you. And they wrote a lot really quickly when Bernie would rush off to the bathroom for 5 minutes and come back and suddenly be hyper creative. So
you just tainted all my Elton John thoughts now.
And Elton John had no substance abuse.
No, I know. Anyway,
so it's fascinating because you look at these people as these icons of what life is supposed to be like, and actually a lot of them had far more out of control lives than the local truck driver. And so it starts from the foundation. The foundation is life is hard. How am I going to equip myself to figure it out?
Exactly.
So I want to know.
And you have no entitlement. You have no entitlement to it. And I think that is what anyone who is younger than maybe the three of us, there is no entitlement to a good life. There is no entitlement to money, but it's the law of attraction. If I think positive, the universe will provide for me. Yeah, my ass. Sorry, that is unfortunately not happening. You make fortunes. You create a legacy. That means you have to get off your ass and stop playing on the internet or playing with yourself or whatever you do. It is taking action is the solution to you doing the right thing, to you becoming that person who you want to be. But you can't just watch someone on the internet some influencers say, wow, he has got money, she has got the looks, wow, that's great, I want to be like her, whilst you're eating Cheerios and doing drinking Coke by the liter. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. That maybe works a little bit whilst you're super hot metabolism in your 18s and 20s. Okay, that's cool, but don't you worry, later on that will not work. So no, how about we teach work ethic? We teach life ethic. Work ethic means going to work, but no, why don't we teach the power of intentional living? I often quote the 5-minute gardener. Imagine you've got a garden and you now decide every day to spend 5 minutes in your garden. Regardless what day, every day, 5 minutes, never less, never more. Now imagine the first week you weeding, next day put some seeds in, next day cut some branches here or there. After a week, you see a difference. After a month, your family thinks, well, the garden looks good. After 3 months, the neighbors come around and look, wow, what an oasis. How beautiful is that? Now imagine you do the same 5 minutes with a relationship. Never more, never less. But every day you spend 5 minutes of giving, of serving, of listening, and keep your mouth shut on that note. Listening doesn't mean you say. Imagine that this relationship will change over a week, over a month. Imagine the same thing with your finances. 5 minutes a day, you focus on your finances. Can you imagine if you start living intentionally like that, that within a month your life changes? Hell yes, I can guarantee you that, because that's exactly what successful people do. And success, sometimes we need a slap around our ears. We need to wake up. We need to stop that bullshit of escaping our reality. And unfortunately, it took me, as I said, it took me till my mid-40s, when really there was not enough alcohol in the world to actually numb my pain. And then luckily it was the love of my wife and the people around me who said, okay, come on, boy, you go to rehab. And I ended up in a fantastic rehab that is unfortunately no longer in existence. But that hospital, that little micro bubble of safety, was my rescue. And I was introduced to a 12-step program there. I became the best addict ever. Put my work, I became the workaholic, putting into the rehab, and I creamed it, and it was cool. After a month, I also got discharged, and yay, fanfare, and I expected rose petals on the way home. When I walked into the house, people just said, yeah, okay. Because my family had continued living their life here, right? Okay.
Right. And I said, you're home and you're not wasted. We like that.
That's if you're lucky. Keep going.
So was that the tipping? I love tipping points. We interviewed somebody a couple of weeks ago who had a alcohol and cocaine addiction, and his tipping point was just beautifully metaphorical. He was standing in a luxury apartment building in New York City with the elevator door smashing into him and then going back, smashing into him, going back. He had no idea how long he was there. It could have been 2 hours. It could have been 3 hours.
Yeah, he wasn't standing. He was passed out.
And when finally the door hit him enough times that it woke him up, his arm was just was covered in dried vomit. So he had been there a significant amount of time. And that was when he was like, okay, this is the wrong direction. And then, of course, went through the steps and, found things that were really reinforcing to him as far as sobriety, physical training and diet changes and all of these things that we have discussed. And so for you, was there a wake up in the elevator, or was the elevator just you were fortunate enough to have relationships that could speak into you and say, okay, we're done. This isn't going to work.
Alcoholism is committing suicide in installments. And so it has been a downward journey that was sort of in episodes. You sort of catch yourself and say, "Now, see, I'm not an alcoholic because I can actually stop drinking for a month for free," and that's cool. But because I didn't address the underlying trauma, I didn't learn new coping mechanisms, I didn't do the work that I later did. Therefore, it was so easy to fall back into it. And I think that was the case, or is the case of so many people. We are, for a long time, great drinkers. Functional alcoholics is the next step, where you basically still think you're functioning, defined that you don't have run-ins with the law, that you keep a job, those kind of things. How much you really functioning? I mean, yeah. Oh God, Robin Williams made so many jokes about that. Yes, as a paraplegic, you can do a lap dance, but it's just not the same. You know. So there you go. So I quote Robin Williams. That's not me. Okay. So I think the reality is, yes, that was me. Was there one significant moment? Not really. But my wife was equally a heavy drinker / alcoholic, but she found Jesus Christ, and she, with the help of her church, got herself sober. And I call it sober because she was a white-knuckling alcoholic. That means no drinking, but I don't need alcohol. That was a bit like her. She didn't do the work. But having said that, the love of Jesus Christ and gave her the power to stop. Cool. But of course, the pendulum swung. So for the next 3 years, we had bloody rows. I mean, if the rows beforehand were not evil and out of this world, then the next thing, wow, that was a complete new thing. When she criticized my drinking, and I went immediately onto the defensive. You don't know what you're talking about. Or probably I sounded more like,
So wow. So you've got a combination of the two of you dealing with this.
Yes. So you had initially beautiful codependency, and then she stood up and left me hanging, so to speak.
Right.
There was my drinking partner. But I kept drinking and kept hiding, and it was really good. I mean, I was very busy. I was hiding in the morning that I was hungover. Then I was hiding that I thought about alcohol. I was hiding buying alcohol. I was hiding the alcohol. I was hiding drinking the alcohol. Then I was hiding that I was drunk. And then I passed out. And then there was no more hiding. So, your full-time job being hiding, okay? So these were weird times. And just one night, I was actually sitting in my garage, my favorite kind of, your shed, the manly kind of thing that you do, and basically crying my eyes out, sobbing, snot and all, about all those negative things that happened to me. So I was in my victim role, and as I said, a lot of nasty things have happened to me. So I felt completely justified, See what they did to me. Now I show them. I will drink 2 bottles of vodka. That will show them. That kind of thinking. And you think, oh, God. And Lisa dragged my boss of the department around at night, 10 o'clock or so. And he saw me in my glory there, crying with pain and being in a really bad shape. And the next morning I woke up. Door opened, and my wife came in, my 2 teenage sons came in, and I expected another lecture, another fight, and they all laid down on the bed, cuddled to me and said, look, it's going to be fine. We love you. And Friday, you're going to go into rehab. But we don't have money. Don't worry, we've sorted that. But I need to work. What about my pain clinic? What about all that? Don't worry, it's sorted. So they took all the decisions away from me and showed me love. And that was the most disarming thing they could have done. And that was then that I finally admitted that I was out of control to myself, admitted that I was helpless, hopeless, and how deep my problems were. And when I say problems, especially my relationship with alcohol, how destructive it had become. And that was the turning point. That was the most beautiful transformation that started. That was wow. And that's where the saying, hate the addiction, love the addict, comes in, because it is addiction you could also define as a lack of relationship with both yourself, with others. The opposite to addiction is connection. And nowadays I know that. Then I had no clue about it, because I thought no one could possibly understand the pain that I'm in. So how could you, so leave me drinking. And nowadays that's very different. It is.
I find
So, wow. Go ahead.
no, I find it fascinating, because I think it's an absolute truth, how judgment saves nobody. And because we, I mean, the biblical concept of judge not isn't because you shouldn't have judgment. I mean, we're physicians. We get paid for judgment. That's not the point. I don't get to judge the condition of anyone else's soul, because I'm not God. That's really what it comes down to. And, when somebody cuts me off in traffic, I really actually kind of want to judge who they are as a person, not just the fact that
want to?
Maybe not just the fact that they're distracted.
Sorry,
or
I'm giving it away.
Their dog just got hit by a car, or who knows what happened, because I don't know that situation. And I have found in my own practice how unbelievably powerful it is. And it really is the fastest way to connect with somebody in one of these situations, when you don't judge them. I mean, I've said this a few times to patients, which is probably the most profound, quickest way to connect with somebody that's in the depths of addiction is I look at them and I say, we're all broken. We're just broken different. And when they understand, I mean, I had a patient come back 2 or 3 weeks after I said that to her, and she said, I couldn't stop thinking about that, because the assumption is she's the only one that's broken. She's the only one that drinks a fifth of Jack Daniels a day. She's the only one with name whatever problem it is. And yet people, the thing that fascinates me is people go to the doctor, and if they admit they smoke, they assume that they're going to be judged. And I never do that anymore, because it's unhelpful. But it tells you how we look at people as physicians is we judge them as bad people for a bad habit. Like, that is just completely nuts.
No. Well, first of all, the definition of an alcoholic is someone who drinks more than their doctor. Okay, so if we actually take that to heart, please.
Yeah.
Then there's no alcoholics.
Oh, ouch. Oh. No, but you see, that was the problem. I could always see the door opens, someone comes in. I could read them from a mile away. Depression, anxiety, alcohol. Depression, anxiety, porn. Something new, or sex addiction. I don't know. They were open books to me. When I looked in the mirror, oh boy, I couldn't see a thing. When I looked into my family, I couldn't see a thing. And that is such an amazing, I don't know, blind spot, I guess. Maybe I didn't want to see, but I certainly didn't see for a very long time.
I think that's very common in the medical profession. I mean, I've thought of that before. How I see colleagues, friends. I'm like, how can we be doing this as a living, as a professional, be so good at your craft, yet in your own circle just stink so bad.
Well, if COVID has taught us anything, it's taught us that most doctors don't think for themselves.
It's like contractors. Contractors build the most beautiful homes, and I'm like, your house is a mess, and it's not finished, and it looks like squalor. I don't understand, but anyway.
Yep.
It's a bad advertisement.
So I'm looking at I think that's the cover of your book behind you, right? My steps to sobriety. Was that the first step? Is going into rehab? Is that do you have more that you can share that was along the way till you were well and
well, as I said, I became the best rehab addict in rehab that you could be, and then I got discharged, and then I suddenly had to think and had to feel. That's really hard because so far I was running away. To now learn how to feel and become cognizant of all those waves that are washing over you, those various neurochemicals. Oh, that's how sadness feels. And oh no, you don't need to drink. That's how happiness feels. And the weird thing is you don't realize that because we're used to these artificial dopamine highs. The first half a year, bugger all happens. And that's really, really hard because you just keep going. You have to just keep going, work the steps and work your whatever helps you. And it takes a while until suddenly things change. And I remember picking up some strawberries from a vendor at the street and had a bite on a strawberry. And I suddenly thought, this is the best strawberry I've ever had in my life. The taste, the juice, everything. Oh, I get goosebumps even now thinking about that strawberry because it was all numbed. It was all, I didn't experience any joy. And then suddenly there was this strawberry. Or there was suddenly the joy of me getting up in the morning on a Saturday with my youngest son. And because I was suddenly this empty man, this empty shell of a man, I didn't know who I was. I was defining myself forever as a doctor. Stripped the doctor away from me. Who was I? I had no idea. And that's where the cheesecake comes in, because I had always the saying, from a young man onwards, there is not enough cheesecake in this world, as in there's not enough joy in this world, as a metaphor. So I thought, hey, German cheesecake, I want to know how they bake it. And I started baking them. I thought I might as well write a book about it. And so this was my first book. I wrote Dangerously Good German Cheesecakes. But
Really?
yeah, the problem, of course, is I'm a doctor. So what I actually wrote was the encyclopedia of German cheesecakes. And so the history and how to make it, the ingredients.
I'm buying that book.
I took it off the market.
No.
I took it off the market because it's really, after about half the book, I thought, I better put some recipes in there. So, but it was a great time. It was a great time because I really cooked the hell out of my kitchen, and it was wonderful. At one stage, I had sort of 8-9 cheesecakes all over the show, and I learned how to do food photography. I learned how to do the cooking, the baking, all those kind of things. Whilst I had a bit of a passion, whilst there was a bit of a foodie before that, I really then discovered that as a trait within me. So it was beautiful, and that was my first book. And then I continued with Dangerously Good German pizzas, Flammkuchen, we call them there, and so on. So I had a good fun. But also during that time, I reconnected with my children in an unexpected way. For example, it is because I had no clue who I am. I thought maybe I'm going to be an artist. But because rehab is expensive, we were skinned. So on a Saturday morning, we looked in the newspaper, garage sales. So we became hunters on garage sales to try to find treasures that can weld together into something. Well, turns out I'm a shit artist. So I never made a cent out of any of my creations, or lack thereof. But it was fun because I was there with my boy, and we were actually spending time together. I saw sunrises. When was the last sunrise I'd seen and remembered? Okay, so there were many sunrises I still saw as through a haze kind of a thing, but that was different. So suddenly I changed.
Would you say, back to the strawberries, would you say that you're now attuned and experiencing all these pleasures that you never thought of before in a new way, and then it's just going to happen? Or is it more, I think people always feel, because it's the 12-step program, it's actually actionable, and you actually have to do these things to get there, which is consciously, okay, let's find a new hobby. Such as dive into the world of cheesecake, or let's go garage sale. My new hobby is garage selling to connect with my son. So I mean, I think I know what the answer is that it's a combination of you have to find new outlets and new things to
Yeah.
discover yourself, maybe yes or no along the way, but also that's when you will see these new pleasures in the sunrises and the strawberries. And am I
Well,
right?
I can counter that with a question. To your audience out there, hey guys out there listening, how many of you have bought self-help books? 1, maybe 5, maybe 10. And how many of you have read them? Oh, some of you even have read them. Cool. How many of you took action? Oh, nobody. Okay, here you go. So that's the reality. If you don't take action, nothing will happen. Okay, and every action that you take will bring you forward. Now, if you have no idea where you want to go, yes, you can start walking, but you walk in any kind of 360 degrees around you. It is really only if you start having a dream and then think about this dream and think about it in all its minute details that this dream becomes a vision. And if you then take action towards that vision, it becomes a mission. So dream, vision, mission. The key ingredient there is to take action. So to answer your question, if you only ever read the self-help books or look at them in the shelf, which is the most common thing that we do, 90% of self-help books don't get past the first chapter or even past the introduction. So if you don't take action, you will never get anywhere. 5-Minute Gardener, I mentioned earlier, is all about taking action. Good investors take action first. They are not analysis paralysis. Oh my God, if the market goes that way. Oh my God, if the house prices go that way. No, you take action with your best abilities. A good leader on a battlefield will take action. The worst thing that can be, if you're caught in an assault, in an attack, the worst thing you can do is lie down and do nothing. Taking action will get you out of any disaster. This the same happens in real life. Waves of depression will come. I loved it what you said earlier. There is depression is normal. 1 in 3 of us will have a major depressive episode, and so you can either. So if this wave of whatever it is, this wave comes in the ocean towards you, big wave. Well, you can shout at this wave. You say, "You wave, I hate you. Stay away." The wave doesn't give a damn. You might as well actually either learn to surf the wave or just enjoy the power of the wave. Let yourself being thrown around, or you might dive underneath the wave. Whatever you choose to do, take action, and you suddenly are part of the game. You are in the driver's seat. No longer you're the victim. You're no longer the passive. That is where taking action comes in. And initially, you don't know what to do, and that's okay. That's maybe where you need to surround yourself with people who are a bit further down the line, people who have done it once or twice or 10 times.
I was just about to ask, because so in this part of, steps to whether it's sobriety or healthy diet or steps to, not being an asshole to my family. It's the taking.
Too late.
Taking.
I wasn't referring to you.
It's all about.
I'll take it if the shoe fits.
It's all about taking action to make those changes. Now,
Correct.
I get, and I know it's not just me, so I'm going to put this out there. Some people are much better at that because they are the actionable types. I won't say workaholics are better at it. Okay. But people that aren't afraid to take risks, to jump in there, to just, it's like, it's always the next thing. They're better at doing that. Whereas there's, other people, I will put myself out there and say, like myself, who do get the analysis paralysis. I say I'm the type 1 on the Enneagram of perfectionism and can't make a decision because I'm a Libra in the, horoscope thing. Whatever you want to use as the excuse.
I was going to say it's an excuse.
Whatever you want to, but it's true. I mean, I recognize it. I try to recognize it to push myself to act on it. But yet, if it's part of personality, and you can change that, but it's still a factor. And so some people have an easier time acting and acting on things. Others get caught up because of those things. And so I'm just looking for, is there any thoughts on tips to make the action process easier, like surround yourself by like-minded people? Or for you, is it, going to AA and being around similar people that understand what you went through? Is it joining a group? Or there's got to be, for some people, yes, you can take action on your own easy.
No.
Other people can't take action on their own easily.
The problem is when you're on your own, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And you maybe see what you're, or hear what you're saying. You don't know what you're not saying. And that is where a skilled coach, a skilled psychologist, a skilled caseworker can assist you. If it is in the case of sobriety or a mental health problem, if you think about money, well, you want to meet someone who actually has got 20 houses and has got a passive income that he does no longer want to need to work. If you want to lose weight, well, don't ask Joe, who is 10 kilogram more than you. Ask someone who has been your weight and has managed now to come down. So find your tribe and focus on one problem. You can't start with everything. And that's the problem why 90% of the New Year's resolutions fail. You set yourself unrealistic goals. You set yourself, I want to be a better man, a better woman. I want to be a better woman and a better man at the same time. And, it somehow it doesn't work. Whilst if you say, actually, I want to have a SMART goal and I want to have one goal that I focus on. Now that will get you better. Now, in order to do so, you need to actually focus on that. And a good way of doing that is actually writing things down. What is your goal? And then, cool, now that you've written that down, well, why? Why did you write that down? And be very specific there. What's your why? Why do you want to lose that weight? Did you look good in a bikini? That's okay for you, unless you're called Martin. Then maybe, but even then, hey, who am I to judge? So
Exactly.
So bottom line is, be clear. So I want to be a better man. Hey, what does that mean? So be very, very specific. Again, dream, vision, mission. But do one thing and focus on it.
Yeah, I want to get to the dream part, because I love your analogy of being in the ocean and the waves crashing and how you can deal with that. But there's another, I think, apt wilderness analogy, which is being lost in the woods. And if you're lost in the woods, the second you understand your lostness, you sit down and do nothing.
Perfect.
Because if you just keep running around, you're doing the same thing you did to get lost, which makes you more lost. So the dreaming part is really important. You sit there and you go, okay, I'm obviously lost. Why did I get lost? And you go through that, and then you go, okay, what's the vision? The vision is, I know I came from this direction because I know where the sun set, and I'm going to wait here tonight and see where it rises to confirm my compass points. And then it's the mission, and off you go. So it's still, because it isn't just doing something, it's doing the right thing. And that is really important. And I think the key, and is exactly what you're saying about doing the right thing, is you're never going to arrive at the right thing alone. That is not how it works. Like, you can talk about the richest people in the world, the greatest athletes in the world, people that we see at the very pinnacle of their craft. None of them got there by themselves. That's really important.
So true. I mean, I was often saying in the pain world, and as a pain physician, if you look at the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, they all have got their success coaches. If you look at an Olympic athlete, they all have got their team of coaches and physiotherapists around them. They all have got power teams where they are the dumbest people in that team. Yet when it came to me introducing psychology or a psychologist to a person who is suffering chronically from pain, as real physical pain, and more often than not also as psychological pain. Oh, no. It's not in my head. It's real pain. And here you are. You've got this kind of hesitation of us. We think we need to be perfect all ourselves. Otherwise I'm a failure. I'm a weakling. I'm not worth anything if I ask for help. Maybe men a little bit more likely to fall into that trap, but women are just as much. Nowadays, the superwoman has to juggle at least 2 children, a job, being a high-flying executive, being happy, being sexy, having 5 lovers, all that, and that's just, I don't know where you squeeze that in, but there you go. Better take some cocaine to actually fill all those gaps. Bake it all together. Bake and shake.
Yes.
So it is that kind of thing. So bottom line is, if we learn from others that have been in the direction, or that are in the direction where we want to go, now that would make sense. Don't start reinventing the wheel or try to strike flints together to get the spark and think, oh, I can make fire. Maybe just buy a lighter, okay? So that's where I would go. So yes, but taking action without taking action, you're not getting anywhere. Regardless how much you know, regardless how much you do, you will not go beyond the starting blocks.
I love it. So now take us to where you're at now in your life. I know that you have a lot going on. You have a lot of books, and you also have a YouTube channel, a show, a podcast. It sounds like you're really reaching out to help others out there. What do you got going on now?
Well, I have been in the darkness for so long that I want to make sense of the darkness. I want to I want to have that darkness mean something. It's not a waste of time. On the contrary, it's a trampoline. It's a jumping board which can catapult me into my future. I learned how to reduce the risk of relapse. So I'm an alcoholic, but I'm sober now for 8-9 years. I am a man who continuously tries to be a better man, and that is an amazing thing, and that comes in many varieties, kind of a thing. So I am also easily bored. So there you go. So therefore, I wrote a few books. So all my cookbooks are off the market. No, one day I will rewrite them, but as proper cookbooks. No, I've written my Steps to Sobriety, which is basically my flagship. That's being reworked now in its 3rd edition, and it's basically about my story, but more importantly about the many lessons that I learned, and very actionable lessons, action plans, lots of them in there, for you guys to maybe ditch the drink, but more importantly to deal with the many challenges that no doubt will arrive. It is very clear at some stage in your life there's going to be a financial hardship. Well, would it not make sense, if you know that you're driving a car and there's a spare tire, that maybe one day you consider learning how to use that spare tire? Might make sense. Same thing maybe with expecting financial hardship and learning what to do about it. Depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, all those kind of things that are essentially normal, but we sort of think, oh my God, and yet it's all predictable. So why not actually do something about it? Having said that, it's so easy to stand at the bottom of the cliff as the ambulance. How about starting earlier? This is Esme, the mindful mouse. And the mindful mouse is a little mouse who's very vivacious out there and is running around in the forest and is often enough annoying her friends, and needs to learn that her actions are sometimes not so nice, but she is not a bad mouse. She is maybe doing a bad thing with annoying her friends, but the difference between being bad and having done something bad, that is a big, big difference. So if we start actually teaching our children at an earlier stage to mindfulness, and actually let them experience waves of neurochemicals. So if a child falls over, you don't need to shove something sweet in its mouth. So pain equals sweet equals sugar rush. No, maybe just pain equals pain. And mum just sits next to me and gives me a cuddle until the pain goes away. Well, would that not make a bit of a difference? So if we start with working with our children, that would be nice. Depression is such a thing, and this is a book I've written, Depression Lied to Me, and it's all the lies that diseases or mental health problems tell us. I could have written a similar book with Addiction Lied to Me or something like that. In this case, Depression Lied to Me. I brought 14 female storytellers together, and they all share their experience with depression and the lessons they had to learn the hard way. And it's a beautiful insight in how different depression can be, yet that they're the same kind of lies that it's being told. Wow. So these are the 3 books that are out at the moment. So in that category. And what am I doing? Well, I'm trying to be the best man, and I'm the best man I can be. So I try to learn from others. So we talked about power teams. So I, in my show, bring on people who have gone through hell and back and kept going. And what lessons have they learned? And I bring them from all walks of life. So I had the honor of interviewing 2 concentration camp survivors. I had, you talked earlier on about the people who have gone through traumatic trauma. Take Viktor Frankl. There's so many people out there who have gone through horrendous things, yet they live now a life that we only can imagine, because they're living it to the fullest, because they know every second is precious. Therefore, they make the most out of it. So I talk to soldiers who have gone through hard times. You name it, I talk to these people. Sometimes I bring on people who have got a certain skill. Something really, really cool that only they know. And okay, what can I learn from you? So it's that kind of thing. So I bring on people that know more than me. And I try to figure out, okay, what can I learn from you? So that's really what my show is about. My Steps to Sobriety on YouTube as a podcast. And then there are many other projects. So if you want to check me out, mystepstosobriety.com is my website. From there, you can find pretty much everything. But what I do as a speaker, as a humanist, as a whatever. Life is too short. I love living life. And maybe just by showing that an idiot like me can get his shit together, that someone like me who has had more than his fair share of trauma can come out smiling, and an honest smile, not a fake kind of mask, but actually can try to live his life to the fullest. And maybe by being authentic and being transparent about my feelings, about my frustrations, about my things, maybe live a different example to my children and to the people around me. I can't change the world, but I can influence the people around me by creating a bubble, so to speak, in which I show leadership. And that means ownership. I own the problems that I see around me. And that doesn't mean, oh, it's my fault. No, not that. No, but it is, what is my role that I play? So I've moved away from being the victim to being a thriver, and that means taking ownership. So if someone above me fucks up, well, did I give that person the right information to make decisions? Did I support that person in the right way? If someone below me fucks up, well, okay, did I give you the right tools, the right teaching? Did I give you the right information to make decisions? That's ownership, and that is living an intentional life. Yeah. So integrity, humility, authenticity, transparency. These are things that I strive to demonstrate most moments in my life. There are some weak spots, or we can't be perfect all the time. That's okay.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I try to be the best man that I possibly can be.
That was
I love it. It sums it up. I mean, ownership and
Mm.
and not being trying not to be the victim and being actionable.
right. I mean, it's amazing when you